Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Community FC, where we've got another week of Roundup review coming to you. So that's going to be game week 9 for the fantasy league managers out there. I'm wearing black today, and it's probably very good that I'm wearing black. I'm in a stage of mourning for what's going to happen, and we will very much get into that. Before I do, let me introduce my guest. So we've got Rich yet again. How you doing, mate?
Not too bad, thanks, Aidan. How are you?
I'm better than I was. I think I've calmed down a bit from yesterday. We'll get on to it. I'm going to talk about a few other games first. Yeah, not the best, not the best. But yeah, so obviously the one thing that before we even get into it, we said last week that there was a lot of goals, and somewhere out in the ether they heard that, and goals is very much this week. There was an outrageous amount of goals scored.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, 2 games with 7 goals in, game with 5 goals, game with 4 goals, two games with 5 goals, 2 games with 4 goals. That's
Yeah,
outrageous.
lots and lots and lots. But
Outrageous amount of goals.
so we'll jump straight back in. So I've got a kind of running order going. Some of them we'll talk about more than others, obviously. But we will start with the one with the 7 goals, but to one team. So let's start with Chelsea Norwich, which was 7-0 to Chelsea. An absolute dominant performance by then. And I've got a couple of notes down, and I'm sure you do as well. So I'll let you start and chat about this game.
Yeah, so I mean, realistically, we're talking about men versus boys here. I think Norwich are in some serious problems. They've got serious trouble here. Chelsea made them look like children. They look like under 15s team playing against men. And this is a Chelsea team that we're seeing. That if you look at score sheet, you've got Reece James, Hudson-Odoi, and a hat trick from Mason Mount, all from the Chelsea academy. This is a good result for the Chelsea boys, I think, and the youngsters coming through.
Yeah, a really good result. And I put a couple of things down which I thought were really important to highlight. You touched on the goal there. I think Reece James's goal was actually the best goal of the weekend. A little chip over was actually very nice. I actually had a mate with me down this weekend who is a Chelsea fan, so he was absolutely loving it. We were like watching it, and he was like, "It's going to be 3, it's going to be 4," and I was like, "How about 6?" And he just kept putting it up and up and up because they opened the floodgates so early. You saw it. Men versus boys. I don't know what to tell you. You've summed it up perfectly there. They literally they didn't look like they had a game plan. They weren't staying in formation. They just literally were getting battered. Although, ironically, we'll get onto it, they weren't the worst defense this week, and that is leaking 7 goals. So something seriously went wrong in a different game. I think the big thing to say, Mason Mount had a fantastic game. He's been kind of on and off this season. Hasn't been his best, but hat trick for him. I know a penalty and a retake penalty, but still very well taken from him and showing what he can do. I think lots of people, the question was, how are they going to perform this week without Werner or Lukaku up top? And the answer is absolutely fine. A different opposition, maybe a completely different result. That is fair enough. But so far, they absolutely smashed it. The red card that Norwich had, I don't think changed anything really. Like they were just looking exactly the same, minus the silly challenge.
If anything, I think that might have even helped Norwich a little bit because they became a bit more compact after going down to 10 men.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, it's always tough because that Chelsea team are a very, very, very good team. And we've seen that all throughout this season, the ability to dominate. And if you have a look at some of them, the stats, 62% possession, 626 passes to Norwich's 380, and 90% pass accuracy. That's outrageous.
Yeah, they from start to finish, it was professional, it was clinical, and it was lethal, and it was exactly what you expect from a team that is supposedly charging for the title this season. Without your 2 main strikers, you are still putting performance in. Like, I don't care if Norwich are the absolute favourite to go down. That is still a great performance from a Premier League side. So well done to Chelsea, and that is dominant. So I'm sure all the Chelsea fans are absolutely loving it out there because they haven't scored. I think I can't remember the stat off the top of my head. They haven't scored more than I think it's 4 or 5 for a good while. So they were showing that like Man City-esque clinicalness and finishing. But good for them. I think we'll move swiftly on to another seven goals, which is ridiculous, which was the Watford Everton game. So yeah, by all means, start again on this one.
I think the mad thing is that the up until the 60th minute, it was 1-1. This all happened in the last half an hour of the game. What a resurgence from Watford here. What the Ranieri must have said something this week in training because to come from losing 5-0 this week to scoring 5 goals and coming back at a very hard Goodison Park. Um, Arguably, you could say, obviously Decore's injured, Richarlison started on the bench as well. Maybe they've got a few injury problems there, but Watford, like Josh King has, got his hat trick against his old club, a club that he was there for 6 months and didn't start for.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you basically hit a couple of things I had on the head there. One, Josh King, I think he had 10 appearances the entire time, no goals, didn't do anything off the bench for Everton. But Josh King is a goal scorer. It's just in him, and at certain clubs it's working, certain clubs it hasn't. It really worked for him today. That day. I think another good point you made was that Everton are, yes, Decore is injured, but they have a really good midfield at the moment, and they have a really solid, compact look under them under Rafa, and they just got completely unwound in that 20, 30 minutes at the end. And one thing I will defend, because obviously Everton fans are having a bit of hit and miss with Rafa at the moment for understandable reasons, but actually it wasn't all Rafa's fault. And I think, the Richarlison goal, he literally subbed him on, and 2 minutes later he scored. So that was, if they'd won the game, everyone would be saying that was a Rafa tactical genius. But because they just fell apart, it was actually more the team. I don't think it was Rafa. Rafa tried to do what he could, but Ranieri, as you said, he's come in, he said something, and we were saying last week, it was like, depending how long it takes for them to listen to me, we're going to see the different things. And he's really pushed on and done that. And hopefully Watford are going to have a bit more fight in them. They might not be the same against all teams, but to not get battered the way they were and change for the better from a manager sometimes needed. Josh King, hat-trick, brilliant. And it's just that fight, as you said, that it was 1-1, and then it's 2-1 from Charleston goal, and then they literally just dug in deep, and then at the end they were just ripping through Everton, and their heads went, and they just didn't know what to do. So
yeah, I think there is definitely an element of an Everton collapse in there. Watford played well, absolutely they did, but I think Everton completely capitulated towards the end there. And you see it happen a lot with teams. I've seen Southampton do it before. It happened to us against Chelsea a few weeks ago. All of a sudden the momentum swings the other way. The other team get a goal back, and all of it, and you can't stop it. You can't stop the floodgates once you've opened them. So I think Rafa will be disappointed with that. I think, but again, like you said, there wasn't a lot that he could have done. I think the onus lies solely on the team. There was a lot of mistakes from that Everton back line. A lot of silly challenges. Luca Dean, I remember.
I was going to mention him.
Yeah, just silly. Just kind of overcommitting to a challenge on the edge of the box. I think one of Josh King's goals, he kind of slides in. He doesn't need to go sliding in to try and block. When I was playing at centre half as a kid, you were always told that stand up, don't overcommit, especially right in front of the goal, because a tricky forward will always drag it back. They'll see you sliding a mile off.
Yeah, exactly. And you make the point, he's normally so reliable, Luca Digne, as well. He's normally so consistent and strong, and he made a couple of mistakes. Everton have their own injury problems, as we said, with Decore and Dominic Calvert-Lewin and stuff like that, but they didn't have the leaders today where they normally do. And I think that's where the heads went. Their best player on the pitch for a time was Gordon before he was taken off to be replaced by Richarlison. So you've got to think where that leadership and the team spirit's coming, and they just didn't have enough on that pitch when their heads just went, and Watford took advantage. Simple as that. But so I think well done Ranieri. I think everyone was really interested to see how quickly he would turn things around. I think after what he did with Leicester, people are thinking it's really interesting to see with this squad what he can do. And that is if that's not after only having 2 days or something with the squad beforehand on that last result, and again it was Liverpool, so you can't really say much there. But let's see if they can push on and do better.
Well, hopefully they start pushing on the week after next, because we got them on Saturday. So
maybe also for you, definitely not too early. But I think that we can quite nicely transition into the game I obviously don't want to talk about, but they conceded. Watford conceded 5-0 against Liverpool last week, and then they thought, let's just do it again. So we're going to talk about the United-Liverpool game. It was 5-0 to Liverpool. I'm going to let Rich start, because once I start, I ain't going to stop. I'm going to try not to rant. I've got it mostly out of my system. I've written my points down so I can be a bit more clinical and a bit more precise. But you start, I'll finish, and then let's swiftly move on.
So I watched the game. The 4:30 kickoff on Super Sunday is always good for a neutral. So it was a abysmal performance by United. Honestly, I've seen teams at the bottom half of the table play better football than United did yesterday. Again, I said it last week. Liverpool are just clinical at the moment, and I am terrified of any team that comes up against them. Honestly, because they are just free scoring. That attack is so potent at the moment. It's not really giving a lot of teams the ability to counter it. And I think you need to have a really strong midfield, and I just do not believe that United showed that yesterday. Salah with a hat trick. If we look at that, was it 38 minutes, then an extra time, and then just after the first half there for the three Salah goals? And I was thinking, could they go on and score more? And I think Liverpool took their foot off the gas because United were there for the taking. Honestly, I think the game could have been 6, 7, 8, 9-0. And I was personally wanting it to be 9-0 after what United did to Southampton last season. But I don't think you can take any positives out of that United performance. I think Ronaldo was petulant and was lucky not to get red carded for kicking out. And I think Paul Pogba. How long was on the pitch before he was red carded? Wasn't long, was it? I don't think there's any positives you can take from that. But from a neutral point of view, Liverpool played fantastic football, free flowing from the get-go, from the start. They knew what they wanted and they achieved it. I guess I will hesitantly pass it back over to you to maybe pull apart the United team.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some positives, and that might shock some people. It's very slim, but we'll get to them at the end because I'll try and end on a high. People might not know me on this podcast just yet. Most of my friends know me. They know that I'm a very realistic football fan, and especially when it comes to my team, I think lots of people are always shocked at how non-biased I can be and how realistic I can be. When my team needs ripping into, I will rip into them. So let's go on that. So I'm not going to talk about all the points. First of all, Liverpool absolutely destroyed us and deserved to win. They should have scored more. And that's just facts. There's nothing to be said there apart from that. It was an abysmal performance. I mentioned earlier that Norwich literally looked like schoolboys playing, and they any other week they'd be the worst team that you've seen defend in the Premier League this week. Literally, we were worse. United were worse. We had no leadership. We had no nothing. People were just not pressing. People were not doing anything. And then people were making individual mistakes. And at that point, when you've got the skill of Salah and you've got the fluidity of that Liverpool attacking team at the moment, they're going to rip you apart when people are out of position, and then he'll just nick in behind Luke Shaw, who hasn't had the best couple of weeks. Harry Maguire's so off the boil, it's ridiculous. If it's Ole, we'll get onto that in a minute. Whoever it is, he needs to be dropped, and you need to be looking at other players because there was only a few players, and this is the only. We'll get into. I guess I've gone into it. It's the positives. The only positives for me were I know Ronaldo had, that bit there and kicked it, kicked the ball against the player, so it can be taken however people want it to be. It could be yellow, it could be a red. Not going to get into that. Shouldn't have done it. He's shown his frustration, but Ronaldo had a chance and he converted that chance. And if it was just offside. So the two positives for me were there was only two people on that pitch who were even trying, literally trying, which was one, Ronaldo didn't give up, and two, De Gea again was doing everything because it could have been much, much higher scoring if it wasn't for him. The rest of them, everybody was throwing their hands up. Bruno was doing it when people were getting past. What are you doing? There's no pressing from you either, mate. So you can't be doing that. Everyone was out of position and they would look like they were playing solely for themselves. Everyone else, like Fred, was just jogging back. People were just jogging back constantly when you're being battered by one of your biggest rivals, if not your biggest rivals. And it's just embarrassing to lose that way anyway, but it's embarrassing to lose against them specifically. Seeing Sir Alex Ferguson in the stands shaking his head and being like that, I think hurt more United fans more than the actual score did. And seeing Kenny Dalglish laughing at us because we were a laughing stock and everybody online was talking about it. It was just an absolute joke, an absolute shambles. I'll look at my notes so I won't keep just going on. I've kind of mentioned most of it. Salah absolutely on fire. Like he could have had more, and I think he's the first player in, if it's ever or in like ridiculous amount of time, to score a hat trick at Old Trafford as well. Like it just doesn't happen. And I know he is the best player in the world at the moment, but that still shouldn't happen. He shouldn't be scoring, especially against us. it was, ironically, I saw it on the weekend, and you don't want to be thinking about that, but ironically, it's 10 years since we lost 6-1 against City in that awful drubbing. So that was like the anniversary of that coming up. And again, people clearly haven't learned from that, and we're doing the same mistakes again. What else can I say? It was just literally embarrassing performance, and I think everyone was embarrassed. All the neutrals will love it and have a go because they will, because that's the way it is. But actually, I can't hold my hands up and defend my team yesterday, and I don't think anyone can from that performance. I think the other things I just want to quickly touch on were, there's going to be some big questions and some big points. Like, one, we talked about this last week, and I was saying I was just getting to the end of my, is it time for Ole to go? I think the answer's clear now. I don't think, there's some people still defending him, and there's some articles and stuff. I don't think you can. Like, I don't want him to leave, and this is very much my point. I don't want him to leave, and I don't want him to leave this way. But it would kind of be better if he stepped down at this point. Not that I think he ever would, because it's, dream job and everything like that. But it would be better for him because it's going to be pushed. No, it's not a case of if, it's when. And I just think that I love what he's done, and I always love him for everything he's done for me as a player and a manager, because actually, I didn't touch on this last week, but I will quickly now. That from Van Gaal, since Sir Alex Ferguson left, we've been cycling through managers and having different ways of playing tactics, and deadwood because of it, and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. But what Ollie's done, when we had Jose, he was a step up from Van Gaal in terms of getting a bit more of a squad together and taking us to another level. Then he got to a certain point, like this game, where you knew it was going to come and the push was going to come, and that was it. But what Ollie's done is he's now taken us, let's say we were D under Van Gaal for a bit, then we went to C, then Ollie's managed to get us, had some brilliant times with us, pulled us out as an interim, had that fantastic night, one of my favourite nights in a long time, for that night in Paris when we beat PSG, a phenomenal game. But he's taken us to the B level, and we think this is his plateau now. He's plateauing out, and he's not going to take us any further. And I generally think that's where we're at, and we need someone like a Ten Hag, or even a Zidane, or a Conte, even if it doesn't play particularly the way we want to play, to take us from that B to that A level, and then push on from there to get on to the next level, like Chelsea have done. And I think, so we can thank him for his time, and it'd be horrible to end like this, but I think everybody sees that it is time. And just on that, one last thing before I kind of step back for you for any other thoughts, or we move swiftly on, is that one thing that I absolutely hate as well. Not actually, I've got two things. One, that's 1 point from the last 4 Prem games. So if that doesn't say it, and let alone the abysmal Champions League stuff we've had, like coming back from 2-0 down against Atalanta, or the result against Young Boys. But the next thing is, so that performance isn't good enough. But also, we then go back to the other classic Old Trafford thing and United thing of, so the Glazers, instead of having talks last night, apparently there were 0 talks last night from very reputable sources about anything that's happened. Apparently there might be some today with meetings booked out, but you'd think any top club would be immediately having crisis talks and anything. No, the Glazers apparently refused to take any calls yesterday. Again, rumours only, I can't say anything, because they were buying an IPL cricket club, and they were in Abu Dhabi making that deal. That is why they haven't done anything. So that is a joke. And I know they own other teams like Tampa Bay Bucks, like we've said, and all this kind of stuff. But if you've literally seen a team that you supposedly love get absolutely smashed by your biggest rivals, and personnel's needed, because that, again, I'm trying not to go on too much, but I think that to sum it up, like, after that result, the manager is going to be in the limelight anyway, and it's going to go badly, and it's going to be a matter of time. If it's not now, it's going to be a few weeks. Surely the dressing room at this point has gone too, because all the people are going to be questioning all those players, and even the his assistant staff, like Carrick and McKenna and all that kind of stuff. I still think Phelan would be there potentially, whoever it is, but I think we've been exposed as potentially being too nice, bringing in two people that maybe aren't as qualified as they need to be. And we just need a complete refresh, and someone to come in, rip that squad up. If it's dropping Maguire, if it's dropping Cat, whatever it is, and getting us moving. And that has to happen soon, or we're in real trouble and might not even get Europa League, let alone Champions League. But I don't know if you've got anything else to add, but that's me. Just embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, that all seems perfectly fair. I mean, for me, I hate to see that, like of Sancho sat on the bench. Personally, I think, how much money did you pay for him?
87 mil.
87 million, and he sits on your bench.
Yeah, because he hasn't, and I understand that's a bit of Greenwood's form and stuff as well, and then Rashford coming back. But someone like Zidane has openly said how much he wanted Jadon Sancho. If you see someone like that coming in, he's going to play every week.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And from talking to me offline that one of my biggest problems with Premier League football at the moment is the big teams' ability to field 2 or 3 starting 11s that are as good as most teams' first starting 11s. And honestly, it annoys me to see Jadon Sancho sat on the bench because he's such a hot prospect. I mean, obviously, during that game, Greenwood came off, Fernandes came off, Rashford came off for Pogba, Dalot, and Cavani. I mean, why would you not bring Sancho on for a little bit or something?
Or the biggest one for me, and I'm not trying to start this whole Donny watch thing, which is another whole United thing, but if we're getting battered in the midfield, and I know there's clearly something going on there, but Donny van de Beek would have helped in that midfield instead of some of the other people you brought on. So the fact he hasn't, again, I think there'd be a lot of, depending which manager comes in, there's going to be a lot of changes. There needs to be a lot of changes because the tried and tested doesn't work. And it may have worked the season before when we were on a big high from getting back to where we kind of should be and winning stuff and progress, but it's not working this season, and the formation's not working. Everything's not working. So it's time for change. It's time to move on.
Yeah. And we should probably move on from this game as well.
Yeah, 100%. We knew it was going to be longer. Everyone's probably interested to hear what I'm going to say, being that my team's the one getting battered, but I don't think anyone can really argue with my points. And I think I've been checking all day. It's just a matter of time. Anyway, right. So we're going to move on. So that was, we'll go to another game with 5 goals in it, which actually I've got some really interesting points to go. So we're going to go to the Brighton City game. And I'll start with this one if you don't mind. I've got a couple of things to pop on for this one. So one of the big things for me in this game was Brighton actually had a 25, 30-minute spell at the end of the game where they totally could have got back into this. If they weren't so far down and weren't at such a big deficit, they could have got back into it. And Graham Potter's side really was fighting back. They had a few chances. And I think that shows what we've been saying for ages, like they could have gone top of the Prem. Like they really have taken that next step up and are progressing. And it's really good to see that he's got that team working so hard and so well. And you can see why other clubs, when they were mentioned before with Graham Potter's name about taking him, people will be thinking a lot differently coming off the back of this one. So really well done to them for that. And I still think even after that result, they're going to keep pushing on and do fine. It's City at the end of the day. The next point on that being City is Phil Foden. He has taken that, for me this week, he took that extra step up with a hat-trick, but he's always been the next star along with like Greenwood and stuff. They're the up-and-comers, but Foden's been unreal, but he's taken that next step, getting his hat-trick, and I think you're going to see him kick on.
It was 2, wasn't it? Two goals.
I thought he got a third one because I thought Jesus got one, but it actually came off Foden, and he said at the end he had to be like it was me.
Well, according to
maybe it wasn't given
Premier League website, we've got Gundogan, 2 from Foden and 1 from Mahrez.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was only 2 of them, but yeah, he's done very, very well. And I think the biggest thing that I've got to say of this City scoreline actually, and the City game in general, was we've spoken about Liverpool and we've spoken about Chelsea. And actually, for once, Man City are kind of flying a little bit under the radar in terms of, we said it last week, they just got the goals and they got the result. And again, they've banged in more goals now, but people aren't seeing them as big a challenge this season, even though they definitely will be up there, but they're just going about their business. They're being clinical, they're getting the goals on, and they're just moving on and just keeping everyone just move on, go.
Yeah, I don't think there's been headlines, like City headlines. I don't know, because I feel the same way about them in fantasy football as well, because I don't have any City players, but that's obviously because of Pep Roulette. But maybe I think Man City is flying under the radar because it's not the likes of, Aguero scoring again, his 10th goal of the season already or something like that. With Liverpool, the headline is Salah. Without Salah's goals, if those goals are more evenly spread, will we be talking the same way? Probably not. I think when you've got one player that makes such a big contribution like that, it comes to the fore. And I think Man City are just getting their heads down and getting on with it. And I think, honestly, you can have all the flash you want, but that's what champions have. The ability to get down and grind out results. You can win 7-0 if you're Chelsea, but you still have to go out the next week and win.
Yeah,
then that's the real thing. When we look at the points difference at the end of the season, it is points. We're not looking at goals. It's not like relegation zone where every goal matters. We're talking points here. It won't matter whether you've got a positive goal difference, a huge goal difference or not. Saying that though, if you look at the goals against, City and Chelsea have got 3 and 4 apiece.
I was going to say, I think with them, actually, they are thinking about that when they're playing some of the lesser teams. But again, Chelsea last week against getting that 1-0 against Brentford, that is again the sign. I've always said the sign of champions is that 1-0. It's grinding out those victories that you wouldn't normally. But again, I think City, as you said, the limelight thing, it's the biggest thing that people have said this year about City has been about Pep. It hasn't been about people on the field. It's been about what he said about off the field and fans and stadiums and that kind of stuff. So, exactly right. Like they've just been going under the radar, but they had a slightly slower start than some of the other clubs around them, like United at the time and Chelsea and Liverpool. But they're just going to slowly do it now, and then they'll be back up there, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh yeah, where do they come from?" But that's exactly that. It's been out the headlines. So, but I don't think there's much more to say. Like, just they're going to keep winning. They're still scoring a lot of goals, and they're going to be up in that top mix of Liverpool and Chelsea, no doubt.
Have they played Liverpool or Chelsea yet?
I think they played Chelsea. Yeah, I think they played Chelsea. But that's, but I think that's an interesting one for them, that they have played one of the bigger clubs. And Chelsea, I think, have played Liverpool as well, I think. So they've been playing those clubs and still getting a good record. But anybody that thinks it's a 2-leg race, it's very much a 3-leg race at the moment with Liverpool, Chelsea and City. So, we'll move on. The next one I got down was actually the Friday night game. And before I get into the game too much, which we're talking about, is Arsenal Villa, which was 3-1 to Arsenal. I know that Arsenal aren't playing like European games and stuff, but to me, as like trying to put my team bias out of it as a neutral, them playing Monday and then having to play Friday seems a bit off. Like, I don't know if that's okay. Like, I saw that, I was like, is that a mistake when they were advertising the next game was Friday? I was like, okay. But anyway, Aubameyang scored again. It was, obviously it was a pen and a rebounded pen, but he's kept up his form. And actually, that's what Arsenal were really missing. It was either Lacazette or him stepping up in the last 2 games. Well, both of them have been stepping up. So, and they had a dreadful start, and everyone was sure that Arteta was going to be the first manager to be sacked. And they've completely turned it around. And actually, fair play to them. They've actually been going about their business as well and actually starting to score more goals as well, not just grinding out these victories. They've really picked up their form. And the only other thing I've got before I'll hand it over to you was the irony of Ramsey scoring against them. Obviously not the same Aaron Ramsey as he's still at Juve, but what a goal that was as well. Just pings it and just top bins. Yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, Arsenal they've kind of obviously solidified a little bit, and we did say that would probably happen. They'd kick on a little bit. I still think they're lacking something. And I think honestly, this Villa team is coming unstuck now. I did call it at the start of the season. I did. They lost their best player in Jack Grealish. I think a lot of Villa was built around Grealish, and they were always going to struggle to replace him. They signed Danny Ings, expecting goals, and honestly, Danny Ings had a phenomenal season for us the year before last, but last season he was off the boil. He started strongly, but got injured very, very quickly. And he's, I think what he did for us was nothing short of magical. But honestly, I didn't see him being worth 30 million. I didn't think he was going to get the goals. And they just don't look that solid anymore. I don't think they just don't look such an exciting team. They've got 3 losses on the bounce now. Maybe they are starting to come unstuck. And at the same time, you got to give credit to Arsenal because they were obviously high and dry before Villa even mounted any sort of useful attack. And great goal from Ramsey as well. But yeah, it was what I would call a classic Friday night game. I think one team turned up and the other didn't.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that unstuck is very much the word. I think that, I don't know whether it's they brought in a few too many people in key positions to try and then replace Grealish, or like they've had injuries as well. And then people have been off the boil and they're not taking anywhere near as much as they were in the first few games. So it'll be really interesting to see a realistic look like when we get to January, for example, where they are and kind of how it's panned out over the last couple of games after that, if they can keep on that form or whether it's really hot and cold and patchy. But the next game, I will literally would just pretty much straight away hand it over to you, because the next game I've got on the list is your game. So I've got some comments down, but I want to hear your thoughts, obviously, and by all means talk as much as you want, because I certainly do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, I'm not really unhappy about it. I mean, last season, Burnley got 6 points off us. You know, they're one of our bogey teams. I hate playing Burnley. I think they are over reliant on a long ball over the top, which we always seem to come unstuck against. So, you know, for their first goal, that's what it very much was: a long ball over top, start the counter attack, and you know, picks us apart there. I think we are missing Jack Stevens in ahead of Bednarek. Bednarek's just got, I think, too many mistakes in him at the moment. I think the main takeaway though is I think we should have been going into half time 5-1 up. I mean, there was an absolute glut of chances that were squandered. Really, Nathan Redmond was the pick of the bunch. You know, and last week we were singing his praises. This week it's back to normal service resumed. I mean, how he misses a sitter 2 yards out, open goal, puts it wide. I mean, my gran could have done better, and she's 6 foot under. Do you know what I mean? It's just absolutely ridiculous. Starting Theo Walcott, I'm not sure that's the play either, really. I rate Walcott for what he does for the team, you know, for bringing in the youngsters. I just don't know if he has it to be a starter, you know, and how is he keeping the likes of Stuart Armstrong? I know he's just come back from a fairly long-term injury, but we've also got Nathan Teller who's not getting a look in. And I think, there's a few of these chances that the likes of Walcott and Redmond had that I think, given any other player, you know, they would have been buried. I tell you what, though, Livramento, what a player, and Brozier as well. You know, I mean, it's you never want to fall in love with a lone player, but goddamn, have I got the feels for Armando Brozier right now. He's just signed a new 5-year deal at Chelsea, so I can't see him coming to us permanently. But yeah, I mean, two goals in 2 for Brozier, fantastic. Tino getting on the score sheet was fantastic, and arguably could have had a first just before then with that little effort off the post. But yeah, I mean, phenomenal play from Tino. Obviously, I think he was at fault for the first goal. Let Cornet go a little bit. You know, myself and other Saints fans have been saying for a little while, we would love to see Kyle Walker-Peters in at right back with Tino playing in front of him, because Kyle Walker-Peters, I think, is better defensively than Tino is, but Tino is undeniably talented going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit everything I had to say there. I literally put down, I was just like, Redmond miss. And yeah, we literally said it last time, like, had issues the entire time, and then seems to like redeem himself last week. And then, yeah, that is an absolute sitter. And then that's cost you, because that is a sitter. You did have a lot of other chances, not all on Redmond. Again, I put that down as well. Like, you had a lot of good opportunities. You know, you played positively at times. And I put as well, actually, I put Tino actually had a really good game, apart from the first goal. But you know, you got to push on from that. And I think that, yeah, Brojo I put as well, 2-2, looking great. And you know, I kind of put that is that if Armstrong's a little bit off the boil and it's a bit hit and miss at the moment, is he your go-to man? And absolutely, at the moment he's on that hot streak. And you know, I think he came off the bench, didn't he? But maybe that's going to be a starting position and really trying to build him into the team. I don't know if you're going to do it alongside Armstrong or not, or whether he just be the main man and for now until he drops a little bit or whatever. And I was like, you know, the comeback from 2-1, but both goals were bit sloppy defending, wasn't it? Again, which seems to be, you know, Southampton through and through.
It's classic Southampton. Sloppy defending is what I would argue is Southampton's default. You know, play well going forward. I think we're still just missing that one little key thing. I think we're missing a ball playing centre half. Salisu, I think, is quality. I think he has what it takes to be a brilliant centre half, but he's a no nonsense, you know, Rosed. And I think with Jack Stevens out, Bednarek is also no nonsense. But unfortunately, he's got a hell of a lot of mistakes in him. I think I'd like to see Lianco, the summer signing we got in. I'd like to see him given an opportunity. He looks like he could be a bit hit or miss. He's a ball playing centre half, and he's got some skills. I tell you. I mean, he's one of the few centre halves that you'll see will have a skills compilation. So that should tell you a little bit of something. But maybe we need a little bit of something like that just to give us a little bit of magic getting out of that box and hitting on the counter, because we've got pace.
Yeah, absolutely. The way you play us, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Maybe with a Kyle Walker-Peters change in formation there slightly and moving Tino further up, and then as you said, maybe one, if not two players just in that midfield that's picking that pass a little bit more and slotting that ball through. You've got the pace to be onto it, and you'd convert a lot more chances again because you'd have more of them and maybe in a more ideal position rather than running a bit wider than they wanted to, which tends to happen. But yeah, I think, as you said, if Burnley took all 6 points last season, you would have taken probably a draw at this point. And from the game, it was very open. You both had chances. You probably should have got the win, but you didn't convert. So that's where you are. So you move on, and as you said, you'll see what happens next week with your games at Watford. So you will see. The next kind of ones we're getting down. I know. These are still pretty, there's still goals in them, but we are very much dropping in goals from that crazy start. To the next ones, I don't have huge amounts to touch on the next ones. I think I've got a few points for each. But so the next one I've got down was the Leicester Brentford one. I didn't have too much apart from Yuri Tillman for the second week in a row scoring another absolute screamer.
He only scores worldies. I mean, it was good. It was business as usual for Leicester. They're a strong side this year. They're going to grind out results, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see them up in the, bothering those European places, Champions League places again this season. There could be a big battle for fourth, I think, and Leicester, they're well within capabilities of getting there. I think Brentford played well. Again, 2 losses on the bounce, but against Chelsea and Leicester, so not bad losses to take. But I don't have an awful lot to say on this game. Yeah, cracking goal from Tielemans.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, like the manager for Brentford again was like any other team. If we're doing what we've done against them, we're getting the points today, or we're getting more points today. So that is exactly right. I think Leicester, they kind of had their kind of high from the Charity Shield, and then they kind of had the slump with the injury to Fofana and a few things like that, and then they've had some illness and some injury and stuff again, and they looked off the pace a little bit, but now they are starting to gel again, and Maddison and Tillman's in the middle have been great. Whether they can hold on to him, because the rumours are he's turned down his contract and he's looking for a City or United or someone else, who knows. But that's a whole other ballpark. But for now, they've gone for a season and they'll kick on. So yeah, moving swiftly on. Palace Newcastle was the next one I got down, only really because first game since obviously Steve Bruce has been sacked from them, or I think it was actually mutual. I think everyone said it was sacked, but I think the actual thing was it was mutual parting again. So Steve Bruce gets his nice cash in there of 8 million or whatever it is. So I know he deserves every penny for the way they treated him. I've put Conor Gallagher, again, looking great for Palace. He, again, seems to be that spark for a team, and I think he'll be picked up if anything happens to Palace. I don't think they will, but I think he'll be trying to move on. Obviously, there was a lot of VAR controversy in this game, but I think that was all pretty right. Like that Benteke one absolutely is ripping his shirt off him, so that should be disallowed, and that's good that the letter of the law has been held and been trying to be a bit more consistent. Wilson again getting on the score sheet again. When he stays injury free, he's managing to do it. But both teams have opportunities to get the win, and it was kind of one of those good, even though it was a 1-1 draw, it was actually a good Premier League slog where it was both teams going for it, and both of them probably should have taken a chance but didn't, so they got a draw.
Yeah, agreed on all those points. It was a no frills game, really. It was a proper Premier League slugfest. What I do want to just touch on though is the point you made about Steve Bruce. That's the story that broke in the last week. Honestly, was heartbreaking. And it's times like that when you realise just how horrible football fans can be. And if you have a look at stats wise, I mean, Newcastle fans, I mean, they're in my bad books at the moment, to be honest, because they sort of deify Rafa. They think he's the best thing since sliced bread. But actually, Steve Bruce had the same number of points. In fact, he might have had 1 point more in the same games than Rafa did. So,
and I would have said he got an awful lot more in the transfer kitty and firepower than Rafa did.
Absolutely. I just think that the way they treated Steve Bruce there is nothing short of horrific. And I don't know if you saw the banner that the Palace
Yeah,
fans
I did.
held up. However you feel about it, there's the takeover of Newcastle has certainly stirred the hornet's
It's
nest.
not going to be the last banner that they see. And I know there's a police investigation ongoing, but it's going to be every single time there's going to be protests. And actually, the more they start winning eventually in whenever that time is, when it comes with investment in years to come, it's going to keep happening. And that's just a fact. So,
I mean, you can't deny that there seems to be some sort of problematic issues of the way that this takeover's happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not in charge. I don't know, but I wouldn't particularly put it past the Premier League. From having a few cheeky backhanders to get a deal through.
I think there's a lot of stuff, and I don't really want to go into too much of it. That there's a lot you can say about the takeover, the people that are doing the takeover for lots of different reasons. So I think you're just going to see that. But yeah, and again, just to go back on the Steve Bruce point again, yeah, exactly. He did well with very little, and I understand you must be so frustrated as a Newcastle fan seeing those results, but the language and the way he was gone as well is just horrendous. And it was really nice to see players like St. Maxim put some really nice tweets out and be like, thank you for everything you really behind the scenes where people wouldn't see, like how he helped the squad and stuff. So that's a nice thing.
It's so easy to not see footballers and managers as humans.
Of course it is.
It's so easy to be like, Nathan Redmond's useless or whatever. But the bottom line is, I think this Steve Bruce story really shows, because it's him talking about the conversations he had with his wife and his family, how it's affected them. It's not nice.
He doesn't want to be a manager anymore. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is it.
1,000 Premier League games as a manager, and he doesn't want to manage. There'll be a club sometime soon, doesn't have to be next year, could be sometime soon, that will need a Steve Bruce to keep him up, and he could do it. And whether he will now is a completely different scenario.
He's one of those managers who they're not giant trophy managers. They're not the sparkly flair managers. Exactly. They're not managers who you bring in when you want to try something new and you want to try something a bit special. These are managers, the likes of Tony Pulis, Ian Holloway, Big Sam, managers like that who just come in and they get the job done. It's not a pretty job, but it's a job nonetheless. And I think, honestly, it's just such a lack of class. And
people might not like it, and I understand from your club if you get, but those managers are still needed. Their skill set is very much in demand at some point, and they always will be.
Absolutely.
And exactly the same thing. I'm trying not to talk about my team again, but exactly the same way. I am already hating and will hate some of the things that are going to happen to Ole because of the things he's done for us. As I said, I think it's better if he resigns. It's not going to happen, but he will be pushed. But you just wait and see how nasty some of these stories and some of these fans get on him as well, even though they praised him before and would have been absolutely loving it. So just look at how people treat managers. Anyway, let's move on. Last kind of two games. Again, not very many goals, but actually the next game, I really don't have anything to touch on, but I thought it was a funny story. It's actually been a bit heavy, so it's quite funny. So the next game's the Wolves Leeds game, which was 1-1. I don't actually have anything to say about the game. It was very like whatever, back and forth, a goal each, and a point and certain players scoring, whatever. The thing I wanted to say was the goal scorer for Leeds, his name has literally just dropped off my head.
Rodrigo.
Was it Rodrigo? Yeah, I was going to say Rafinha, but when I find it Rodrigo, he literally did a FIFA celebration. He went over, kicked the corner flag out of the thing, and bent the corner flag. And I just thought it was funny that he just like left it on the pitch broken. I was like, I understand like pretending to like shadow box and all that stuff, but he's literally just punted the corner flag as he's playing FIFA. So that was literally the only thing I thought was stand out in that game.
It was at Ellen Road, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be facing a fine.
Yeah, no, it won't be at all. But it was just one of them. I was just like, it's just literally booted it, and then on the floor it's just bent. I was just like, that's made me laugh because of the FIFA celebration. But yeah, I'm happy to move on if you are.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought a quick note to Wang Hee-chan.
Yeah.
Like
fantasy league points again.
Yeah. I stuck him in as well. I think he's a very good player. Definitely one to watch, and obviously very cheap on fantasy football. So. He's a good one for those people who might still have Ings sat in their team.
Exactly what I did, and I changed him out, and there you go. And the last game, which most people would not have thought would be the last game that we're going to talk about, and or running order of match there and stuff, was actually West Ham Spurs. So on paper, that looked like a really good game. for the neutral for both teams, because you're like, this is probably going to be quite high scoring, both teams attacking. Both teams just looked a bit meh. And the things that I've got, the notes I've got is obviously Antonio strikes again. Great for him, and he's carrying on that form again. The thing I've put, Spurs were very off the boil, and we've talked about it a million times, twice now. I'm not going to go into it too much again of how they're very on and off, and Nuno and Kane. The big thing I wanted to put on, I was like more on a, and it is for both teams. What I'm about to say, it does work for both teams, but more for West Ham. Are they suffering from that Europa League hangover? Like, they've been banging goals in Europe, and is that a fixture which is like two Europa League teams stretched a bit too thin on midweek Thursday duty, and then just not really having much to answer on the weekends, and that's starting to affect them?
I think it definitely is the case for West Ham, because West Ham are new to the Europa League. You know, they've not been in it for a few years. They've not got the squad depth. Tottenham, I don't know what the problem is, honestly. I think they've got a solid squad. They're just not playing. I mean, we've spoken about Harry Kane pretty much every week. I don't think he wants to be there, to be honest with you. I think he was obviously after the big move. I would be shocked if he doesn't go this summer. Shocked. I don't know. There's something on with that team at the moment, because on paper they're a really, really good side, really strong side. But they're just not doing anything. Every game seems lackluster. Even Son, you know, and previously we've seen Son carry Tottenham, you know, when Kane's been out injured. But we're not seeing that again this season. And, you know, I took him out of my fantasy football team, Son, because he's always been such a consistent scorer and a consistently good player. And we're just not seeing that this season. I don't know whether that's because they're not playing for Nuno.
I don't know. I don't think anyone can answer that. Some weeks they look great and their teams gelling together, and some weeks they look like they're strangers and not really knowing each other and playing weird and just not taking their chances or being on the same wavelength at all. That's really it for this week. I was going to end, like, I tried to do a fun story that I seen. I didn't really see anything, so I'm going to end this week on a joke. Actually, you ready for this?
Okay.
Manchester United's defense. So that's it for this week. Thanks very much for watching. If you have, you like that joke a lot.
Yeah, I did like that one.
Literally, I was like, I'm just going to put something in, and that's my views and opinions this week, and we'll move on. Thank you very much for watching. If you have been enjoying this content, don't forget to hit the like button, give us a subscribe, put a comment down below, get involved in if you agree with anything we say or disagree with anything we say. We love to have a chat with people in the comments and hear everyone's opinions. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss our videos like I do with lots of other channels, hit that notification bell up top, because it will notify you every time we put a video out. And I already have done it. So there is another episode of My Club already scheduled and in for Friday lunchtime, and we're going to be, as much as this hurts, going to Liverpool. So yeah, that's just nice irony.
Thank God that was pre-recorded, right?
Yeah, pre-recorded, absolutely. Otherwise, yeah, it might have been. I did actually say to the person who I recorded it with, I might just delete your episode and not put it out after watching my team on the weekend. But that is what's going to be coming out anyway this week. So more content to come this Friday, but obviously we'll be back next week to talk about all the results, and we'll see. I think there'll be lots of news that will drop and potentially a new manager. So thanks very much for watching. Thank you again for coming on, Rich. Some great points as usual, and we will catch you next week. Thanks very much, guys.